Welcome back to KMAN's Morning News. We're pleased to be joined here today by Congressman Tracy Mann from the 1st District. He joins us in studio today. Congressman, good to see you.
Brandon, great seeing you. I've joined your show a lot, but never in studio, so it's great to be here. It's always awesome to get to be back in Manhattan.
Absolutely. We're pleased that you could stop by and visit us for a few minutes. I understand you've been touring the region here today.
Well, we have, multiple stops already this morning. We stopped by the Russell Stover's plant there in Abilene. Which is a fantastic facility. Encourage anyone to stop by if they can. And then while we're in Manhattan, we toured the airport, which I've been to the airport, of course, many times in the terminal, but was able to go up in the air traffic control tower, talk to those folks there, learn about some projects at the runway. Really excited and appreciate Brandon being willing to host me over there.
Did you get any chocolate when you were at Russell Stover?
Truth be told, I did. Actually, they let me take a chocolate off of the line.
Oh, nice.
And I really like chocolate, but to get a Russell Stover's that's literally coming off of the line, nothing like it, and I'd highly recommend it. It was a privilege and a pleasure to get to do that this morning. They employ 550 people in Dickinson County, so a very large employer, and great to get to stop by.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, it's neat to be at the airport, and I'm curious to know how, air travel is one of my questions here I was going to have with regards to the government shutdown. Let's start first with the shutdown. We're here 3 weeks into it now, and it looks like no end in sight at the moment. I know you've been critical of Democrats on the other side of the aisle here. What's your message right now to your colleagues as we move into week number 3?
Well, my message is that Democrats need to end this political stunt and reopen the government. I voted, more than a month ago now to fund the government for 7 more weeks through November 21st while we continue to work on the appropriations process. That passed the House. Over in the Senate, Republicans are in a majority, but remember it takes 60 votes and not 50 votes in the Senate, and they don't have the votes. No Democrats have been willing, or only a handful have been willing to go along with that. And so we just need to end this senseless shutdown, return back to regular order, and get the country back on track.
And despite the political ramifications, I know both parties are guilty of it here, but for some, there's the folks that are caught in the middle and working without pay right now. Some might not have that nest egg that they can draw from right now. Is there any temporary fixes that can be done right now, at least to get some folks paid?
Sure. Well, number one thing, and I don't get paid either, and I think that's important. I signed a document that said that I don't get paid until other federal employees get paid, but this could end this afternoon if a handful of Democrats in the Senate were willing to end the shutdown. Now, they've been non-willing to do that so far. The president was able to shuffle some money around Department of Defense and get the troops paid, which is very, very important this last pay cycle. Also been able to use some tariff money to do some things like keep the WIC program that helps very vulnerable women's, infants, and children. But that those dollars are going to run out, and so we need to get the government reopened and get serious about figuring out what government funding should look like for the rest of the year, the rest of the fiscal year, which would be through September 30th of next year.
Now, the government budget is so large, and I think a lot of us don't quite comprehend how big it actually is. But you can't rob Peter to pay Paul for so long. At some point, you got to come to an agreement here. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon here. How long can we realistically go here without an agreement in place?
Well, we'll see. We've already set a record. So this is the 3rd longest shutdown ever. The 2 shutdowns that were longer were both partial shutdowns. So this is the longest full shutdown. The Senate this week is going to continue to consider legislation that'll reopen the government. In the absence of that, my understanding is from Leader Thune, they are going to consider legislation that would pay the troops and do some specific things. If that were to pass, we would immediately consider that in the House. I'm sure it would pass in the House, but that would be kind of a partial reopening. But we need to not do a partial reopen, not just do that. We need to get the government reopened, the services the people come to expect and need, and we need to get people paid that do great work for us from the federal government.
Speaking with Congressman Tracy Mann, now you mentioned you were at the airport. I'm curious, we're getting close to the holidays, and there's a lot of federal workers who work at the airports. We don't want to see air travel get impacted around the holidays. How do we as
air traffic controllers can be impacted. Now if they're a contractor, then maybe that's a little different than if they're directly with the FAA. But regardless, those funds will eventually run out, and so you have air traffic controllers that are deemed essential, so they have to keep coming to work, thankfully, but they're not getting paid. Same with the TSA. there's around 25 TSA folks that work at our Manhattan airport here. They are going to start working without pay. Border Patrol doesn't get paid. FSA offices, Farm Service Agency offices are closed, which is very inconvenient for our farmers. Without action, our troops don't get paid. This is not good for the country. It frustrates me when we have folks right now on the left side of the aisle that are just looking at the political calculus of this. But what's the right thing for the country? I think everyone would agree that the right thing for the country is to fund the government and pay people that are actually doing the jobs that they're called to do.
Now, I'm curious, is our airport going to be in any danger of closing if this is a prolonged extension of this shutdown?
I don't want to speak for the airport, but I don't believe so. In other words, TSA has to continue to show up. I'm hearing reports at the Atlanta airport that there are delays where folks aren't. Not as many folks are coming in, so as a result, there's getting to be significant delays there. There might be some air traffic issues and concerns in other parts of the country. Don't anticipate that in Kansas that I'm aware of, but it's a day-by-day, week-by-week thing, and the longer this goes, the higher that risk is.
Okay, very good. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen, certainly. As far as some other things going on here, we did hear from Senator Moran's office about the Defense Health Agency is considering downgrading the Irwin Army Community Hospital at Fort Riley to an outpatient clinic if it doesn't meet the threshold of inpatient status. He's introduced an amendment in the NDAA to fix that. Rural healthcare is such a fragile thing, as you well know. How vital is it to keep facilities like that as an inpatient option in our area?
It's incredibly vital for our servicemen and women, for our veterans. Thousands of people get health care from that facility. I'm aware of those reports. It's very concerning, and I'm optimistic, that if that is that those rumors get confirmed true, that we would be able to overturn that and they would reconsider that decision. And I would support, Senator Moran in if there were something on the House version or if that were to come up, I would absolutely vote to keep it open because I think it's incredibly important, as is access to all of our healthcare facilities in Riley County. And around our state, incredibly important, always and never more so than now.
All right. As far as some ag-related news, I'm curious. I haven't heard a lot lately here, but I know it's been in the news a lot, is the New World screwworm and its impact to U.S. livestock. Now, fortunately, I haven't heard any reports of it crossing over the border, and that's a good thing. But how is USDA continuing to safeguard against that from crossing over from Mexico?
Yeah, and if those haven't followed this, so New World screwworm, it's a fly, but the larva of it can infect cattle and can be very detrimental to cattle. And we've had outbreaks of the New World screwworm decades ago in our country. We were able to get rid of it then. There have been some confirmed cases all south of our border so far. Even most of them have been in southern Mexico. We are still a few hundred miles away from the U.S. border with Mexico, but it keeps working its way north. And so credit the Department of Agriculture and the Trump administration for very proactively working to make sure that it stays out of our country. That's first and foremost. The way you do that is you breed and release tens of millions of sterile flies that reproduce with the infected flies, and then they die off. And so far, I think we've released 3 billion flies. There are production facilities that are under construction right now that would ramp up further production of sterile flies. And so continue to watch and monitor that very, very closely. We got to do all we can to make sure that it doesn't get into our country.
Man, it makes me wonder where do they get all those flies from?
Yeah, well, the numbers are staggering, right? 3 billion, but you need hundreds of millions of sterile flies to be released to really eradicate the New World screwworm. And this effectively is how we went about doing this decades ago, and it's still the right thing to do, and that's what's being feverishly worked on right now.
Well, one thing I know our president has stressed in agriculture is improving trade deals. We're nearly a year into his presidency. How would you grade where we are compared to a year ago in terms of trade?
Yeah, well, made some significant good steps in progress. I think about the United Kingdom. We got a new trade deal with them. Them taking in our beef is a really important thing for agriculture in Kansas. Also, the UK agreeing to buy and taking in ethanol, very important for agriculture. And so that's incredibly important. We have seen, bad actors like China that have manipulated markets, have done some things that aren't good. By and large, we're making progress. We need to get these deals done and get to a level playing field to help agriculture for the long term.
Okay. I'll end on a soft note here for you. Daylight savings. It's coming up again here in November. I know the president's been critical of this. We hear about it a lot, about maybe ending daylight savings. How do you feel about
I'd
it?
be finding, it's not something that's ever come up in the House before.
Okay.
So I think we need to look at it. A lot of people are frustrated by it. The time is, play on words. Time has maybe run its course for daylight savings time. We'll see what happens. He might be able to do something via executive order. Overwhelmingly, I hear from people that would like to just do away with it, not have to reset the clock, set it for once and for all. But we'll see what happens.
Fair enough. Well, appreciate you being here. And again, we hope to see an end to this shutdown at some point.
As do I, and as anyone listeners has needs, and we have an office here in Manhattan. Of course, our office in D.C. as well. Reach out at any time if I can be helpful.
All right. Tracy Mann, again, Congressman for the 1st District, joins us here on KMAN. Thank you so much.
Thank you.